Alright, we're gonna start with a bit of a sensitive topic, but it's only for me to get to the point of this video. So, cancer. When somebody is diagnosed with cancer, right, depending on the stage, they usually have to go through the process of chemotherapy, right? So now you're going through chemotherapy, and what chemo is doing is it's basically trying to beat the cancer in a race, I guess you could say, to your life or death. You know what I'm saying? And in this race, say the chemotherapy succeeds, two things happen. Either it, I believe, gets rid of the cancer entirely, correct me if I'm wrong, or you go into remission. Remission is basically like the cancer's still there, but it's no longer growing in your body. Okay? And often people who go into remission, praise the good Lord, for some people they stay in remission for either the rest of their life or for most of their life. And other people, the cancer comes back, and sometimes even stronger. Now they have to do more chemotherapy, more stronger treatments, more surgeries, yada, yada, yada. Feel me? Now, let's apply that concept to traumas and addiction, right? All right, so say you're addicted to something. Okay, you're addicted. And you want to quit. You really want to quit. But you can't quit. You're having a hard time quitting. So you continuously maybe go to therapy sometimes, you do this, that, and that, but you can't seem to quit, and the addiction seems to persist. The trauma in your mind seems to persist. It's because we get so caught up in solving the symptoms. Let me reword that. It's because we get so caught up in solving the symptoms to these traumas and issues that we never focus on the root of it. Now, the reason why I use cancer as the first example is because what chemotherapy is doing is it's curing and it's fighting the symptoms of cancer. It's trying to beat cancer in a race. But the reason why you go into remission in the first place is because you're not actually destroying the cancer. You get what I'm saying? The root to where the cancer started. You're destroying the thing that's growing. And I think often when it comes to a lot of us and our traumas and our problems, we're often fighting the thing that's growing. We're not going after the root. So you have to find the root in order to cure these things. If there was a cure, which I'm sure it's out there, for cancer that was legit, it would go after what started the cancer, not fighting off the growing particles and cells of the cancer to beat it in that race, or else remission wouldn't exist. Because remission is basically signifying that the root is still there, the cancer is still there, if you get what I'm saying. So now, once again, apply that concept to trauma. Okay, trauma. When you go through a trauma in life, a lot of times too, it's a part of your brain that holds on to that like negative feeling that trauma gave you, and it continues to persist, to persist, and persist. And often, what we as humans naturally do is we find coping mechanisms and certain devices to kind of ease that feeling of the trauma that is placed in our brains. Some people smoke, some people get addicted to this, some people get addicted to that, some people do whatever, right? Or maybe they go to therapy and they do certain things, but it's like that problem never seems to really go away. It's because you have to start focusing on the root of the issue, not just the issue. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think something that people don't really often realize is that traumas can start from the littlest things, and traumas often are brought up from our childhood. So say you have a problem with loneliness. It can be as simple as you feeling like you didn't fit in school for a little while, or simple as maybe your parents neglect you for a while. If you have a problem with being a perfectionist, it could be for the fact that growing up as a kid, maybe you always felt like you had to do things right, you're going to be in trouble. Like, these are possible roots to these issues, but you have to do a deeper dive and more research on it to really know what it is. Because once you figure out the root to your issue, then now you can take it more serious. Then now you know you can have a better approach. So let's use an example, right? I went through something for a few years called hypochondria. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up. It's health anxiety. And basically, my body was creating physical sensations of actual diseases. I forgot how it started. I think it was like Manhattan. Sometimes I started getting frequent panic attacks. And just a lot of things going on in my mind. I went to constant doctor visits. I did constant heart tests, this, that, and I couldn't find the problem. There was no problem with me. But psychologically, I was stuck in like the fight or flight mode from that first panic attack I had that turned into hypochondria and health anxiety. You get what I'm saying? And I had to reach a certain point, just skimming through the whole story, where I had to find out what was really causing me to stay in this state of fight, flight, or freeze. Then I realized something. Growing up now, I wasn't spoiled, okay? My parents beat the life out of me for certain things, okay? But I'm grateful to be raised in a two-parent household. And being raised in a two-parent household, I wasn't as independent as I should have been in areas, or I'm not even gonna say should have been because my parents raised me right and I appreciate them, but I wasn't used to being independent with certain things. So when it came to health anxiety, I wanted to quickly run and try to find something to solve with doctors, parents, ask for help, this, and that. And I was too afraid to figure out the issue on my own. I was too afraid to battle the fear on my own because the reality is it was fear that brought about the health anxiety. Fear that the panic attack I had was really a life-threatening disease. Fear that what I was feeling was really something like life-threatening, like I said. And that's what it, and it wasn't that. But I was too afraid to sit there and mentally battle it by myself. And I didn't know that that came from the fact that as a kid, I was always afraid of doing things independently. I didn't have any true independent strength. And especially as a man, I learned that that was important. So it got to a point where I could no longer beg my parents to bring me to the hospital, spend mad money on them hospital bills. I couldn't keep trying to go to a million doctor's appointments to the point where even my doctor was like, yo, like, you gotta chill. And I had to get to a point where I had to fight the battle independently. I had to sit through the physical sensations I was feeling because they're real. Trust me, if any of my hypochondria sufferers out there struggles, like you really feel it, okay? I had to sit through it and accept it. I got to a point where it was like, yo, if I die, I die. And I sat through it for a few years, and I finally was able to overcome it. Let's say sometime or like late last year. I'm sorry. And now I realize the reason why I was able to overcome it is because I identified the root issue in which the problem came from. Now let's apply it to addiction. Use example. What's a good example? Some people who struggle with loneliness, right? They have a corn addiction. I'm not gonna say the word, right? So they constantly spend nights doing the nasty, whatever you want to call it, too, right? And often it makes you feel terrible after. You feel like a disgusting human being. You feel like this, that, and that, right? But a lot of times that can come from the fact that maybe you were lonely. Maybe you haven't experienced relationships in life. Maybe you haven't had a girlfriend before or a significant other. So you found a way to cope with that feeling of loneliness by doing something that spikes your dopamine extremely high. You get what I'm saying? And you get caught up in that cycle and that cycle and that cycle. And even though you want to quit, just like even certain drug addictions like drinking, you want to quit, you get addicted to the feeling. Now, in order to overcome this problem, you have to figure out the root. Okay, why am I doing this? Like I said with the corn thing, it could be, hey, maybe it's loneliness. Maybe you, as a kid, maybe saw something, you were exposed to something very early and you were curious, and that curiosity turned into this, that, and that. And now you're watching that stupidness every day. With drinking, maybe you saw your parents do something crazy as a kid, or you saw something extremely traumatic, and every time you're in certain scenarios, it reminds you of that feeling. So, when you get that feeling, you realize that drinking has kind of helped subside that feeling. It's calmed you down because that's what drinking does a lot of times if you drink heavily, especially. So you became addicted to drinking to a point where now it's a need in a way. But you have to be able to put those drugs down, put that corn down, put all the stuff you got to put down, and figure out the root to it. Like I said, the root for the drinking could have been you saw some traumatic as you was younger. So now identify the problem. Look into the feelings you had during it. Remember, we don't like traumas. It don't matter what age you was. When you go through trauma, you're going to remember that feeling. Learn to sit in that feeling. Learn to sit in it. Learn to feel that feeling. Understand it. It's uncomfortable. It's comfortable as hell. Become to terms with the feeling and understanding so you can fight it. That's what it is. If we continuously run away, it's like this. You keep running away from the root problem, and the root's going to keep showing itself in different areas. That's why addictions form from traumas. That's what happens. You have a trauma you go through, you don't heal from it properly, now it's become an addiction. Because that addiction is kind of numbing the pain that the trauma caused you in life. You get what I'm saying? So you have to do true research on that root for your problem. Where did it start? This trauma, maybe you got abused by a family member when you were younger. When did it happen? How can I get over this? How can I forgive the person that did this to me? How can I let go of this? How can I move forward? How can I grow a strength from this? And the only way you can do that is through sitting and through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's the truth. Through God. Learn about yourself. Learn to understand yourself. Learn to grow a relationship with Christ, a personal relationship with Christ, not just church. A personal relationship with Christ. I'm not trying to force Christ or Jesus on you too, but this is partly also what I'm talking about on this channel, just learning to have a true connection with God, because God can reveal those roots to you. You just have to bring him the problem. But like I was saying, you want to make sure that you're identifying these root problems and doing research on it. Really think about it. Okay, I'm addicted to this, that, and that. Like, even just start with the addiction. Okay, let's use drinking. Okay, I'm drinking heavily every day, every night. Okay, why am I doing this? Do I generally want to do it? Maybe you generally want to do it. I don't know. Most people who overdrink don't generally want to do it. I'll tell you that. All right, am I stressed? Why am I stressed? You got to kind of go in like a pattern and break it down slowly. Okay, I'm stressed because it's work. Work is stressing me. Why does work stress me? Because I hate being overworked. I hate when people disrespect me. Okay, now it's disrespect that's a problem. Okay, why are people disrespecting you? They're disrespecting me because every time I try to say my opinion about something at the office or what I want, people are making me feel like I'm stupid. And I hate feeling like I'm stupid because since I was a kid, my father made, oh, okay, damn, your father made you feel like you were stupid as a kid? Now we rewind more and more and more. My father made me feel stupid as a kid, even though I tried to do everything to satisfy him. Oh, damn, so you had a perfect problem. And now once you get to that root of the issue, you can now see, okay, whoa, this is where it started. And now I'm here. I know that when I'm doing these drugs heavily in this addiction is not something I want to keep doing, but I can't stop because it formed from that. So now that you know what it formed from, you can identify. Maybe you might have to have that long talk with your father about that too, just to feel it. Maybe you have to learn to forgiveness, learn how to forgive people. Maybe you have to learn to turn that pain into strength. Maybe you have to learn. Oh, was that a bee? What the heck? What the heck just entered my room? Maybe you got to accept the fact that that was in the past. Acceptance is a huge part of recovery from addictions and trauma as well. But the key point in this video is to identify the root. Stop trying to heal the symptoms. Don't keep trying to heal the symptoms. When I say heal the symptoms, that's get these addictions and all these things too. Clinging on to certain coping mechanisms. We all have it and it's normal, so don't feel ashamed for it. But now let's find the root. Where did this start from? This trauma that's in my brain and is causing me to act out in certain and other areas in my life, because that's what trauma does to you. What started this? Sometimes, like I said, we don't even know. A lot of traumas, especially insecurity-based traumas and stuff, often start when we're younger. It's like a brain pattern your brain kind of gets used to. Like if you're a little kid, like even me, I grew up, like I think I said this in a few videos, I grew up very short, okay? Short, okay? I'm not the tallest now, I'm 5'8", okay? I'm average height or a little below average, but like I grew up very short. I was always either the shortest in my class or the second shortest, okay? So I always felt naturally inferior to people. I don't know why. Or I do know why now, but I always felt inferior to people. I always felt insecure. I had little man syndrome. So I wouldn't get mad fast, but I didn't like when people bigger than me tried to disrespect me. So I like to fight. I didn't get into a lot of fights in school, but I just never liked when people made me feel smaller. And as I got older, I realized, and even as I get older, I realized that that problem still psychologically persisted in my brain because I was so used to thinking in that way. So I always naturally felt inferior to people around me. So I had to get to a point where I identified it, which I did, and learned to build my own confidence. I started exercising. I started working on my physique. I started learning self-defense for myself, boxing now, and how to defend myself and stuff. So now I have more confidence, and now I no longer feel inferior to everybody around me. And the only way I was able to get to that point is I identified the root issue. I didn't just accept the fact that I'm this way because I knew it was negative effects to that. It's negative effects to having little man syndrome and getting angry every time. You know, I wasn't an angry child or nothing, but like I had my moments where I didn't like, or not even angry, forget the anger part. I didn't like feeling inferior. I knew that that feeling of inferiority was a problem because it was applying to every part of my life, literally everything. Everything I do, I always feel inferior, even if I know I'm doing the right thing. So I had to work on myself. I had to figure out the root issue, which I figured since I was a kid, I was always small. I felt insecure, yada, yada. And I did things to help that. Like I said, I got in the gym, started working out, worked on my physique. Brother got to see the guns? Okay? Worked on my physique, worked on my confidence, figured out who I was, built a strong foundation and relationship with my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And now, as I am here, I no longer feel that inferior feeling. Yeah, it still creeps up here because traumas don't never really fully leave us, but it's no longer such a big focus in my life as it was before because I identified the root. So if you're struggling with any addictions, any traumas, any life prolonged issues that's been in your mind for years, for months, for whatever amount of time in which that trauma has placed in you, stop focusing on what you see in the front of what it is, if you get what I'm saying. Start rewinding time. Go back steps and steps and steps to why you're doing what you're doing to cope with that trauma or addiction and see where it started. Because if you can figure out where it started, you can figure out how to end it. You know what I'm saying? Let me say that again in a better way too. If you're struggling with any major trauma or addiction, figure out when it started. Because where it started is often where the root is. Once you figure out where the root is, you can now find solutions to solve the root. Don't keep trying to cure the symptoms. A lot of times we're trying to solve the momentary issue. Like, oh my God, I keep drinking. Oh my God, I gotta put my drink away in a cabinet and hide it from me. You're gonna go back run into it. You're not gonna be able to stop drinking that heavily, smoking that heavily, freaking being off that heavily till you figure out when it started. Figure out when it started. Figure out what started. Figure out why you feel that way. You know, we are emotional creatures deep down too. We're spiritual creatures. It can be spiritual issues. You know, dive deep. Don't be so simple-minded. Really think about why you're doing this. Because it's never for no reason. This fly is killing me. It's never for... The hell is that? It's just a buzz fly. You know, these addictions and stuff don't just show up for no reason. It's there for a reason. You're struggling with that for a reason. If you feel like you need sunlight for the most part, that often is a signification of an issue. If you feel like you need something. When you feel like you need something, you can't survive without it, or you can't go a day without it often, that means you gotta look into something. You gotta figure out what's going on here. For the most part. You know, you need food every day. I'm not saying you can't if you feel like you need food. But even people fast. For God. So I hope I said that in the clearest way possible for anybody struggling with trauma and addiction. If you have any of your trauma and addiction type stories you want to share them in the comments that I could share my opinion on. If I can help, I would love to. But just figure out that root. Stop solving them symptoms. Like I gave in the beginning with that cancer analogy too. Only reason why people's losing their life to cancer. Rest in peace to people that have, because I've seen people in family stuff thing, right? Because the root's not being solved. They're just fighting the symptoms the whole time. Putting that trauma in remission till it keeps growing and growing. And when you realize how with people with cancer, when it's in remission, often it comes back stronger. That's what happens with trauma. You keep numbing yourself with whatever drug, whatever thing you're trying to blind yourself away from the problem, and it's gonna come back stronger. That's why you're drinking 20 times more. That's why you're smoking 20 times more. That's why you going crazy 20 times more. Pause. Figure out the root. You figure out the root. Now it's time to get to work. Okay, damn, this is where it started? What can I do to solve this? Maybe it was a self-esteem issue when I was a kid. Let me get in the gym. Let me talk to some people about it. Let me go to therapy and ask a therapist their psychological opinion on how I can get to the root of this, how I can solve this root. Let me learn to look at my insecurity that I had as a kid that caused this trauma from a different perspective. Maybe I wasn't as small as I thought I was. Maybe as a kid, I was so mature to think that small or being smaller signified weakness when that's not the case. There's so many short athletes and strong things. This is even me telling myself this. So many short, successful people in this world. Look at Kevin Hartman. Some crazy short Mighty Mouse, crazy UFC fighter. You get what I'm saying? Find the root to your issue. Don't keep trying to cure them symptoms. Love y'all. Peace.